This time on episode 373 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we discuss Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Season 1, Episode 5, Truth, weekly Marvel news, and your feedback.
I'm SP from the GonnaGeek.com show, a weekly geek news podcast that is part of the GonnaGeek.com network. Just like the show you're checking out now, shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other amazing geek shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You have been granted clearance by Director Alfonso Mack Mackenzie. Stand by for a S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Lauren.
I'm Agent Michelle.
And I'm producer of this show, Director SP. Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. The show is recorded on Sunday, April 18th, 2021, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios, and broadcast GRC-wide via www.geeks.live. Come and join our live chat as we record. Ladies, happy National Animal Cracker Day.
They really are more cookies. I got to agree with Ben Affleck in Armageddon.
Yeah, I see them as cookies as well. I liked getting the ones in like the little box that had like the animals on it. And then there was a string, like you could carry it like a little thing.
Yeah. I like to get those and like bite their heads off. And
So did you guys hear that in 2018, Nabisco, who owns the Barnum's animal crackers, that they released them from the train cages and they now roam free? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I didn't either, but it's all part of this write-up on National Animal Cracker Day. So now I know.
Animal Cookie Day.
Cue someone singing that Shirley Temple song.
Which one?
The animal crackers. They used to show
In your
that
soup?
infomercials. Yeah. Where it was just all these Shirley Temple movies. And that's the bit that always sticks out to me.
Yeah, Shirley Temple. And she only was active for a few years, right? But
Yeah.
she was just incredible, the amount of movies that she was in for those few years. Iconic movies now, I guess, too. Or classics. One or the other. Maybe both. Well, since you don't like Animal Cracker Day, so ladies, happy National Animal Cookie Day.
There we go.
All right. All is right with the world, Michelle?
Yes.
All right. And with that, let's get on with the rest of the show. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the Marvel Cinematic and comic book universes.
Because of training montages.
If you'd like to talk to us about your favorite training montages, you can find our website, legendsofshield.com.
If you have a song you've written about training montages, you can get a hold of us at our voicemail, 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
We're on Facebook, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
We are on Twitter at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
You can tell your Amazon device to enable Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill.
You can join our Discord server at GonnaGeek.com/Discord.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the GonnaGeek.com network.
Ladies, a couple of days ago, this penultimate episode of this series called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier aired. So you feel like talking about it tonight?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, we may as well. We're all already here.
Okay, let's go ahead and do it then. On Disney Plus on April 16th, 2021, that was Friday, Season 1, Episode 5, the penultimate episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, aired episode Truth. Michelle, I'm having a hard time remembering who directed this episode.
Hold on. Yes, it was Kari Skogland. Has 56 directing credits starting in 1994. 6 of the Borges, 1 of the Killing, 2 Under the Dome, 1 Longmire, 2 Vikings, 1 Penny Dreadful, 2 Fear the Walking Dead, 1 of the Americans, 2 The Walking Dead, 1 Punisher, 5 The Handmaid's Tale, and 6 The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, all 6 of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episodes.
There you go. Yep.
Okay, so I shouldn't have a problem remembering next week. Let's hope I don't. In the meantime, Lauren, who wrote this episode?
This episode was written by Dalan Musson, who has 3 writing credits starting in 2009, including Iron Sky, The Coming Race, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
And of course, the series showrunner was Malcolm Spellman. Truth is the title of the episode. Michelle, I think Lauren wants to tell us all about Truth.
Yes.
Okay, so Truth is actually the name of the comic series that introduced, well, it's like a miniseries that introduced Isaiah Bradley. It's called Truth, Red, White, and Black. And yeah, it's all about like what happened and all of that. It's a really good comic. I very highly recommend it. It was written by, I'm pulling it up right now, Robert Morales and drawn by Kyle Baker. So that made me very happy that that's what they called the episode.
I found that out after I had watched the episode, and I thought it was very fitting. I didn't put it together while I was watching the episode or before. It was after, and it was pretty cool. Michelle, is there any other truths to Truth?
The fact that I called it last week, I said that John Walker was fried about it. And we learned really the truth behind how he sees Captain America, how he sees himself as justified. And then the truth Sam comes to realize, thanks to his sister, that he can indeed, whether or not he calls himself Captain America, we'll see, but he's definitely worthy of the shield and wearing a new suit, going to New York and kicking some butt.
That took a lot to get him from where he was at the beginning of the series, wanting to give the shield back to the museum, not wanting to carry it, to the point where not only does he want to carry it, he wants to wield it. He wants to use it for the purposes that stand behind the shield. And he had to fight for it too. Even though after he fought for it and he won it, he didn't feel completely justified. He was going to take it to Isaiah, which was great that we got to see Isaiah again. But Isaiah's like, oh no. So Sam had to deal with those whole things with Isaiah and come to his own conclusion, which he did with his sister.
Do we want to just start with how the show started with that epic fight?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. They try to talk him down, and depending on someone's frame of mind, sometimes there's just a trigger word or a phrase, and it's almost as though they got John talking, getting him down and everything. And then they said, give us the shield. And that just made him snap, because he's like, I'm Captain America. The shield is mine. You're not going to take my toy. And they're like, there's blood all over it. You just killed it to slaughter someone. We're going to take it. And it's going to be an epic fight to do so.
It was an epic fight. Absolutely. I had flashbacks the entire time of the Civil War fights. And I will say fights plural, because he had that big fight at the airport where you had Sam going back and forth with like Spider-Man, and Captain America going back and forth with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man just schooling him from time to time. But it was all about who can control the shield, who's taking the shield back and forth. Sam used one of his mechanisms to go grab it at one point in time during the fight. So I'm like, oh, you learned that from Spider-Man back in the Civil War. And then you go to where the Soviet super soldiers were, and you had that epic fight of ownership of the shield at the very end. It turned into ownership of the shield, where Tony Stark said that doesn't belong to you. So Captain America just dropped it and left with Bucky. So those things combined all brought me back to Civil War. I mean, let's face it, with Zemo around, a lot of this reminds me of Civil War. But ultimately, it's who owns the shield. Sam wins it. And you had the Falcon's wings get destroyed, and he left them with Torres afterwards, which we'll talk about later. But he was using the wings. He was using the jetpack that propels him when he's flying. Bucky was using everything that Bucky is superpowered. So he's going after another superpowered individual. The difference is Bucky's training, I know that John Walker is heavily trained, and Bucky has his arm, as long as it's not detached. So he, I think, had the advantage in that whole thing, but still, with Walker's, I guess, pure adrenaline that was going through his system, he was just difficult to beat in that fight. It was an epic fight between the three of them.
They ended up having to break his arm. That was savage. Yeah, it was the fact that he was newly injected with the serum combined with the adrenaline. I think that's how he was able to hold his own for so long.
Okay, speaking of Walker, he's been the subject of a lot of online discussion this past week, and especially since Friday. There's a lot of John Walker was right. There's a lot of I'm sending death threats to Wyatt Russell because I hate this character. Guys, don't do that. It's just a character. And he's playing it really, really well. He's capturing a lot of the nuance. So last week, on Sunday nights, I rewatch this stuff with my spouse and my best friend. And my best friend was Air Force. So she has this whole perspective that, like, I don't have regarding being in the military, that mindset, kind of the more toxic aspects of military culture. And she had a lot to say about Walker. If I'd been thinking, I would have asked her to record it. But the thing is, like, we see this guy, he was a really nice guy. We see him, he wants to do the right thing. However, okay, much like Bucky falls back on his training and the way he was programmed, Walker, we see, falls back on his training, and I don't want to say programming, but it is definitely like kind of training him to be like this person as a second nature in combat situations. And again, that makes him really good at combat and not great at a lot of other aspects. And in regards to this fight, we had, well, first of all, last week, it's the whole when Steve had his sidekick killed, how he handled it versus Walker, how he handled it after his sidekick got killed. Like, they both lost their best friends. And Walker, we see him when he's talking to that military panel. Whenever we see him talking, when he's talking to Lamar's parents, again, he's a decent guy, but he's not Steve. He's not somebody who started at the bottom with nothing. He is someone that has always been a golden boy his whole life. And it seems like this is the first time that he's really been publicly kicked when he's down. And he does not handle that well.
No, he doesn't. I wouldn't say it's a military tribunal or a military court or anything like that. It seemed like it was the political will of the United States. It seemed like it was congressional or some sort of political committee. I don't think it was military involved, but the military serves the president of the United States, the executive branch, and is subjected to all sorts of congressional regulations as well. So the deeming of Captain America, I think, is beyond military. I think it's the nation as a whole. Or at least they think so. So the senator, I think he was referred to as senator finally. And even the first couple of episodes, he was just a political guy or representative of the government. Now he's listed as senator. And I don't know if it's a complete Senate panel. I doubt it. I think there were multiple representatives of the branches or entities of the U.S. government on there. So there's that. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to say is John Walker is yet to have made a good decision. One of the things that he says is that he got the guy that killed Lamar. That is not true. If you go back to the fight, it was Carly that killed Lamar. So he's lying, and he knows he's lying the entire time.
I'm not sure he knows that. I think he views them all as one entity, and this guy is just the one he happened to catch. Like, if he had grabbed any one of them, I think he would have held them just as guilty.
Maybe, but if that's his viewpoint, then he has to get all of them. in order to avenge
and
Lamar.
I think that is his plan, like as we see in the mid-credits scene.
Yeah, this is the first mid or post-credit scene in this series, which I at least that I can remember. That made it pretty neat. And also it harkened back to Tony Stark when he was making the Iron Man suit in the cave with a box of scrap with the hammering, which was again alluded to at the end of Endgame with the hammering there. So there's a lot of hammering, but I think in this particular case, it's kind of showing that the world isn't right, because he is not the hero that Iron Man or Captain America was, and yet he's there hammering away. More like what's his name in Iron Man 2, the villain?
Oh, it was in Dynamo, but
yeah, well, it's Mickey Rourke.
Whiplash?
Yeah, but Vanko. Yeah. So it's more like Vanko than it is Tony Stark or Captain America there at the very end. And I'm guessing that his shield is not made of vibranium.
No. There's no way that shield is made of vibranium. However, it doesn't have to be for you to do some serious damage with it anyway. And as we've seen, he's viewing the shield as more of a weapon. Like we saw him use it as just outright a murder weapon. And that's, again, where we see the difference between Cap and Walker. Cap tends to use it more defensively. Even when he's like, throwing the shield, it tends to like hit things out of people's hands and stuff like that. I'd need to go back and check. I mean, it's a good excuse to rewatch the MCU anyway.
Yeah, I just watched Captain America, the First Avenger, and in Nazi Germany, he is using it offensively.
Yeah.
And wielding a gun. I mean, we had that conversation already. So,
yeah.
But he's learned over time. I think you're right. Overall, at the end, he was using the shield much differently than he was at the very beginning. Also, as far as John Walker's shield, he's infusing his medals of honor, or at least one medal of honor, into it. We had a short discussion a few weeks ago about the fact that he has 3 medals of honor. I did some research. I was pretty sure during the podcast, but I did some research after the fact. There is nobody in the U.S. military that has earned 3 medals of honor, and only like a couple of dozen, just to give you a mindset of how much it is. I think it literally is 22, but I'd have to go back and check. A couple of dozen of people that's won it twice, and most of those people aren't alive anymore, or weren't alive after the axe to get the second one. So it goes into the unrealistic character of John Walker to begin with, or where the world is post-blip.
Well, yeah, again, it's supposed to be this guy who was an exemplary soldier. That doesn't mean that he was a great person to begin with. Like, again, we all think, okay, we're pretty good people. But as we've discussed with Zemo talking when he's like, yeah, but there's only ever been one Steve Rogers. The chance that you'd find somebody that good to where when all their stuff is amplified, they still remain that good of a person, that has to be just astronomically small. Again, when I keep thinking, I've had some friends who have died kind of violently. And if I would have done the same thing as John Walker. That does not make it the right thing. I've gone to a lot of therapy for anger issues about that stuff. But just because you can say I would do the same thing, that doesn't make it right, particularly when you're supposed to be more than a person at that point. You are a symbol. And you are not only that, you're in some huge shoes to fill, as he himself said. And he has not lived up to that at all.
After the fight, you get a little going back and forth between Bucky, Torres, and Sam. That's when Sam gives the wings back. And you have Bucky going off. Sam nails it. oh, so you're going to go find Zemo. Bucky doesn't say anything, but of course he does go and find Zemo at the memorial of the Sokovia disaster. And we see him getting arrested, for the lack of a better term, by the Dora Milaje.
Oh,
taken into custody.
here's the thing. This is the most anticlimactic thing. It's like, hi, my name is Zemo. I escaped from prison. I got our heroes to Mandapore. I destroyed Serum. I made this really awesome exit out of a bathroom while everybody was fighting. And I'm just going to stand at the Sokovia Memorial and go back to prison, to a worse prison than I was in. It was so anticlimactic. A lot of us keep asking, why was Zemo even involved? And for him to just go back, it was just, why?
I think I have an answer for that.
It seemed very anticlimactic, but I suspect that Lauren has an answer here, as do I. So if Lauren doesn't have the answer I have, I will say it, but I think Lauren's barking up the same tree.
I think so. So we have yet to talk about that cameo. Julia Louis-Dreyfus shows up as, long name I cannot remember. Call me Val. It's Madame Hydra. Everyone, it's Madame Hydra.
Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yes, it's Madame Hydra. And first of all, when I was watching that, I had a freak out of that. And also the fact that she's acting so much like Selena Meyer in Veep. She's bringing a lot of that energy in. But anyway.
Before you go on, I just want to say that I am not surprised that Madame Hydra is an outgrowth of Seinfeld.
Well, she's okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Anyway, between her making Walker that offer and us finding out that Zemo is not going to Wakanda, he's going to the Raft. There has been a lot of speculation that, especially given some of the actors they have coming in to play presumably antagonists in the next few live action series, we might be getting the Thunderbolts. What are the Thunderbolts, you ask? They're basically Marvel's Suicide Squad. And I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Like, we have Tim Roth coming back as the Abomination. We have Ethan Hawke, I think, is the bad guy in Moon Knight. I have to go and look and see who else has been.
The Thunderbolts are called the Thunderbolts because they're named after the general.
Yep, Thunderbolt Ross, who we still have floating around in the MCU.
We do very much. And on the field, they're led by Zemo. So that is why Zemo's headed back to the Raft, allegedly.
I think this is... Somebody called her coming in there and doing that evil Nick Fury. And I kind of agree with that. I do think this is leading into the Defenders. This is leading into, hey, we have all of these really excellent actors playing these really interesting antagonists that we finally have room to get to know them a little better. So let's use these series as kind of a backdoor pilot for all of those. And then we end up with Defenders in 2 or 3 years.
So, Michelle, I did some research into Val. I know you did as well. I actually read a little bit of the Contessa in the comics as well, but probably not as much to be well versed in it. But I know you did a lot of research. So do you want to talk a little bit more about who Val is?
She's actually a triple agent. So first off, she's superb at hand-to-hand combat, marksmanship, espionage. She often wears bulletproof fabrics and carries a pistol. So I imagine that coat and everything was bulletproof and such. She's actually a triple agent. At first, she seemed loyal to S.H.I.E.L.D. and then she seemed loyal to Hydra. However, her true loyalties lie with an organization called Leviathan. And Leviathan is about recovering the ability to create superhumans, which Zemo doesn't like. However, Steve Walker has the super serum in him, and she says that makes him important to a lot of people. So that made me think that she might might not be Madam Hydra in this case. She might be working with Leviathan because now they can experiment on Steve to get the serum again.
I think you meant John.
John Walker. You said Steve Walker.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. Yeah.
And just a quick diversion because we kind of skimmed right by this. Sam hands Joaquin the wings and he's like, keep them. Joaquin Torres in the Marvel 616 universe is also a version of the Falcon. In the comics version, he is a human bird vampire hybrid. There's a lot of experimentation going on. He also can psychically bond with Redwing, who, reminder in the comics, is an actual bird. And because of that, Joaquin and Sam can use Redwing as a, like, it's that tell so-and-so to tell so-and-so I said this. Yeah, we'll tell so-and-so I said this, but not kind of petty and childish. So I was very glad for that little comics nod.
As far as Contessa, there's one other loophole that it might play into. We still don't know who the power broker is. Now, Sharon is making some moves. It comes out that she paid for the Batroc's outings.
Batroc the Leaper, who is wearing his comic uniform colors. And again, it's like, we hired this guy. Let's not waste him. So he's back.
So Sharon is hiring him, which might lead to a lot of the theories that she is actually the power broker. There's now some theories that says the Contessa is the power broker. So there is still the fact that the power broker has not been named.
I am moving away from Sharon being the power broker because here's the thing. Batroc goes to Carly. Carly called in a favor. We're not too sure who she called. But then we see Sharon telling Batroc that, hey, I got you out of that prison. I'm going to pay you more. And then he goes to New York to give her weapons. Is she not the power broker? Is she a flag smasher?
For the record, I have never said that Sharon was the power broker. Matter of fact, I said it went against her character and where I would portray the actor as going forward. However, I said I wouldn't be surprised with anything, especially coming off of WandaVision. I wasn't going to get too hung up on if Sharon was the power broker or if she wasn't the power broker. But I assumed that she wasn't. But this last move definitely tips the scale for those that are just watching episode by episode of the fact that it does lead credence into the fact that she could. Now, I still think she couldn't, but I can see the people saying, whoa, that is another step along the way. Could she be a flag smasher? I could definitely see that. I could definitely see her seeing the world being a better place, or at least moved on from where the Avengers were. It still is with her family history and her relationship with Steve, Uncle Steve, that it I don't know. It's hard for me to view the character in an anti-Avengers viewpoint. And I don't even know if the Flag Smashers would be considered anti-Avengers or not. They're definitely anti-GRC, but I don't know if they're anti-Avengers. Even Sam agreed with the Flag Smashers what they wanted to do. He just disagreed with how they were doing it.
Either way, she's hiring someone who wants to kill Sam.
Yep. She said she had two problems. Sam could be one. And this would be her second time, if that's true, of trying to kill Sam. So I think she would have set up the first time to kill Sam.
Yeah, I think. Okay, well, it's really obvious Sharon's involved in something big, something that we are not privy to yet. She's helping Sam and Bucky, but she's also helping the people working against them. I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure. Like, again, it's been a hard few years for Sharon in between basically having to run to Madripoor after stealing the S.H.I.E.L.D. And
Or so she says.
yeah, or so she says. But I think it's also very clear that she was one of the ones who remained during the blip. And we know that things got difficult during the blip. We keep hearing it alluded to over and over and over again. And I think whatever Sharon's doing now, I think it has something to do with whatever happened to her during the blip.
For me, the key is, why does she want to kill Sam? And it could be any number of reasons. You just said a bunch of pros and cons. Like, is she really trying to kill Sam, or is she setting it up? I don't know. Maybe she's trying to get well, if she was trying to get Batroc arrested, that already happened. And then Sharon got him out of prison again. So whatever. I don't know. There's a lot set up in this last episode to come to conclusion. And we'll see what happens with that. Michelle, any last words on the power broker?
I think we need to stop saying that because Sharon is related to Peggy Carter, that therefore she must have the same moral fortitude as her aunt. Sharon is her own individual. And for us to keep saying, well, Peggy wouldn't do this. Well, Peggy is Peggy and Sharon is Sharon. And we need to remember that.
Oh, I have. I just went back to the last couple of scenes that we've seen in the scenes along the way. And she seemed to be working along a path for good rather than a path for chaos. So that is what I'm going off of. Who knows? She could have been a Hydra agent this entire time and was never really activated on camera. Who knows? I don't know.
I don't think that's the case, but I do think we are probably going to find out that she's connected somehow to Val. Maybe she'll end up in the Thunderbolts series too. Maybe she'll end up running the Thunderbolts. I have no idea.
Val says something that's, in my opinion, quasi-important, that the government doesn't own the S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a legal gray area.
Yeah, okay. So this S.H.I.E.L.D. was the one given to Steve by T'Challa. So it is not the one that Howard Stark provided, which, by the way, Howard Stark was a contractor. I don't know how his legal situation and IP and all that factored into the stuff he was doing in World War II, but this S.H.I.E.L.D. anyway. It was a gift to Steve from Wakanda. And Sam donated it to the museum. The government then took that and gave it to somebody else. I am not a lawyer. I am not. There has to be some sort of interesting way to look at this whole chain of command. And yeah, it does seem like a really interesting legal gray area.
I mean, why would they even mention it other than to get the audience off of the point of John Walker has to give the S.H.I.E.L.D. back, or Sam has to give the S.H.I.E.L.D. back? I think the statement was just made for that, but I don't know. It could come back years later.
I'd really, really, really like to talk about the Sam and Isaiah and Sam and Sarah storylines.
Sam and Isaiah. Sam goes back to Isaiah. I talked about this last episode that I thought they would be going back to the United States. Turned out they did instead of Madripoor. We still got a Madripoor scene with Sharon allegedly in Madripoor. But a lot of that happened, a lot of the episode happened back in the United States. Sam goes to see Isaiah. Eli is in the scene again, thus leading to introducing Eli into the universe again, right? And it was an interesting conversation. Sam and Isaiah actually sat down after they got over some initial rough words to learn about the complete history for us on camera, but also for Sam. I thought it was a unique way to bring that to closure. Sam ultimately makes his own decision, but the stuff that he learns, I think, is important from a historical perspective inside the MCU and then for us outside the MCU. So, Michelle, how did you like that conversation between Sam and Isaiah?
I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we got to have this is more like a really good Sam episode. We've had some Bucky moments, but we finally got Sam. We got Sam having that conversation, during doing some internalizing, going back home, being with his sister. Yes, Bucky comes, but it's really because of Sam and Sam doing his thing and being, with the family. I think it was important for him to start really seeing what the shield means and what it could mean. Because later on, it sort of ties into there's a line that Bucky says when it's like, Steve and I didn't think what it meant to give you the shield. And I'm sorry that we forgot you're a black man in America. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to Isaiah's point to where no one's going to accept a black man as Captain America.
So there was a lot of discussion apparently after about Steve would have talked to him about race. Okay, I know this is a comic example, and this is once again using mutants as metaphors for any marginalized community. But during A versus X, there was a huge clash between the Avengers and the X-Men, not only about comic stuff, but also talking about how the Avengers were never there for the X-Men after the school was blown up and stuff like that. And some writers have done like really interesting conversations between Cyclops and Cap, where it's a lot of, yeah, it's all too little too late. You never asked about this because you never thought of us. And there's a lot of discussions like that going on right now in the real world because, okay, race is a thing. In the United States, this is how we have decided to stratify our society all the way back to wherever. Look up all the stuff about who gets to be white and conditional whiteness and stuff like that. And people don't tend to think a lot outside of their experience. Right now, there is a lot of discussion going on about a game that was just released where it's supposed to be like, okay, it's a black man and his son, and the cops stop them, and you have to like make those decisions, and you get to see, oh, this is how it could be. But a lot of people are like, you shouldn't have to play a game to realize that we are people, and this is the stuff we are going through. And I'm not going to say both sides have valid points, but I do agree that you shouldn't have to play a game. You shouldn't have to. There's a lot of, you see this with like, oh, I was a jerk until I had a daughter and now I understand feminism. You shouldn't have to have something touch your life that directly to be able to empathize with another human being. And it's not malicious. It's just people don't think about the stuff outside of their experiences a whole lot. It's just how the human mind kind of works. You have to work at it. And it is, to me, very plausible that this just wouldn't have come up. It's come up with me as a woman, a Latina, somebody who's queer. And it's like, oh, okay, you clearly never thought about it from this perspective. And there's a lot of stuff that I'm not thinking about from other people's perspectives because that is not my lived experience. Like, my sister is about 10 shades darker than me. The stuff that she goes through is not the same as the stuff I go through. I have so much to say, and right now my thoughts are bouncing around everywhere. Someone else please take over.
Yeah, we got a couple more things to talk about here, one of which is the newfound romance between Bucky and Sarah.
I thought that was cute.
Same.
I thought it was cute too. It means that Bucky no longer needs his dating online profile, which, getting back to that conversation, by the way, we had what would be in his dating profile, and we thought he liked baseball, and we were wondering what his favorite baseball team was. I just want to say I was wrong there, because I said it would have to be the Yankees because he's from New York. I forgot in the 40s, you had the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yes.
So I don't know if he would still be a Dodgers fan, but he was at one point in time a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. Now, of course, for those that don't know, the Dodgers have since moved, but he wasn't a Mets or a Yankees fan. He would have been a Dodgers fan. Just want to say that. And as far as his dating online profile, doesn't need it anymore because at least he's flirting.
Yeah.
Pretty overtly, but nicely with Sarah.
We see a lot of, we have, in addition to the Cap training montage that Sam does, we have the shrimp boat or fishing boat. I'm just assuming it's a shrimp boat because I used to watch shrimp boats coming in and out of Galveston every day. But anyway, the fishing boat that they have, they're working on cleaning it up. Sam decides, he's like, you know what? I'm going to swallow my pride. Our family built this big community. We have people who owe us stuff. So all these people come and help them. And again, it's another reason that we see Sam is an excellent Captain America. He has the ability to build bridges. He calls these people and brings them all together. He even makes peace with Bucky. He even helps Bucky. He's pulling his therapist thing there. In particularly the whole, you say you're making amends, but what you're doing is kind of getting vengeance. And I thought that was, again, this episode really put a spotlight on Sam. I know we've talked a lot about Walker. We've talked a lot about Val. We've talked a lot about Sharon, but this episode was Sam's episode. And I was so happy that we got that.
The training session, or at least the mutual catching the shield, analogous to throwing the ball sort of thing back and forth between the two guys, that's I want to say stereotypical, but it's a very useful tool to talk to somebody at a meaningful level while you're doing another activity. Usually a mild physical activity like passing the ball back and forth. But in this case, they're literally throwing the shield and then one's catching it and then the other's catching it and then they're passing it back and forth. A lot of symbology inside that conversation with the shield use as well, of who's got the power, who's got the shield, who's mentoring who at that point in time. Very well done scene. I loved it. And I also love the fact that they try to save the trees, because the first time he threw the shield, it ends up impacting into the tree. So then they padded the trees so the shield could bounce around. The one bad thing is, if the shield can go through a tree, it can go through the padding to get through to the tree. So I guess the shield knows if it's a tree or not.
I figured that they put we see the padding. I figured there's like a lot of bits of like scrap metal under there.
Yeah, maybe, or it's Kevlar or something that's a little bit more resistant. So in that conversation, though, Sam tells Bucky that you need to do good for at least one person. Well, we already have the avenue for that in the series because of the man, I won't say boy, but the man that was killed while he was Winter Soldier, and that he had been going back to his dad, right? And I think that's the conversation that's going to happen. It's not an avenging conversation. It's a, this is what happened to your son conversation, I think. And I think that's what the old man's going to need. But I think it's going to hurt Bucky in the process, because Bucky's going to say, I'm the one who killed him.
That's what he needs to start doing.
So are we going to see that? Like, where is the end? Where's the climax of this series? Is it going to be halfway through the next episode and then we're going to get a 10 to 20 minute epilogue on the backside of it? Because those are meaningful conversations that take time.
I think it's going to be something like that. We're going to have the kind of the resolution with regards to Karli and the Flag Smashers somewhere around the midpoint of the episode, maybe around towards the end, but I think midpoint's most likely. And yeah, we'll see Bucky making his amends. We'll see Sam being, even if he's not sanctioned by the US government, he is the successor. He is Cap.
It's kind of the stereotypical penultimate setup episode, but at the same time, there was just so much that happened. I thought it was a really good episode. I really enjoyed this episode. We haven't talked about if we liked it or not. I did. I think it's a good use of the episode. Took a long time to get here in terms of it's a 6-episode series, but I'm enjoying where we are right now. And I really wanted, at the end of the episode, I'm like, oh man, this is the first episode that I watched of the series going, I got to wait a week to watch the next scene here. I got to wait a week here, because at the very end, Sam's opening the case and we don't see what's in the case. We all know what's in the case, but we haven't seen what's in the case. So I'm like, oh man, I really want to see that. And the resolution, what's going to happen with Bucky, how is Sam going to be received by everybody in his new role. So this is all great. Also, Bucky mentioned one thing in their talk too, that Steve talked to him about giving the shield. And we never saw that on camera. But to have that acknowledged, that Bucky was part of the decision process, because Bucky was around before Steve was Captain America and actually was involved in a lot of Steve's main points as Captain America. I thought that was a cool nod that the two of them made the decision, or at least Steve consulted Bucky in order to make the decision to hand the shield off to Sam. So I thought that was good.
I was really hoping we would get that, he would put the suit on, and then we would have that last shot of him, shield suit and, standing tall and ready to go kick butt in New York.
It was the director and showrunner's preference, I guess, to have everybody waiting for that next week or not.
Have everybody at the edge of their seat. Felix in chat says, yeah, this next episode can't come fast enough. They did a really good job of ending it right where you want more.
So question for you guys, since the Wakandians were the ones that created the suit, it's not Stark tech anymore, it's Wakandian tech. Do you think that Shuri added a new Red Wing into the suit?
I kind of hope so.
That would be nice.
Give Sam his drone back.
Or at least maybe make a drone for Torres if Torres is going to take on the wings. We'll see.
What, you don't want him to be a human bird vampire?
The way the MCU is now post-blip, I wouldn't be surprised at anything. Michelle, did your mom watch the episode?
She did. She watched it basically an hour before we went to air, so there's no audio. But I did ask her what she thought. She really enjoyed the fight scene. She's happy that Sam got the shield back. She is like, Sam should definitely have the shield because, he believes in himself and he knows what the shield means to the world and what qualities a person has to, need it to do. She also wanted the episode to end with the, outfit and the shield. And she's all like us. It was a good episode and she can't wait to see the next one.
It's cool. Do you think she'll watch it Friday, or when do you think she's going to watch the next one?
Over the weekend. She doesn't watch it on Friday.
Okay. So maybe we'll get a final voicemail from her on Falcon the Winter Soldier before we record the next time. Lauren, any last thoughts on this episode, the penultimate, or any predictions as we go into the finale?
I really, really liked the cinematography this episode. There was a lot of kind of playing into the uncertain mindset of specifically Walker and Sam. Whenever we saw them, you see like the background is a bit more out of focus. The camera is not quite level a bunch of those times. And at the end, things have evened out for Sam. There was also a really cute little set bit where in Sarah's kitchen on the fridge, there is it looks like the Cap shield, but it's a little heart and it says like world's best mom or uncle or something like that. But again, it's the little details that I really, really love about what they've been doing with the Disney Plus shows.
I thought this was a great episode. The Julie Louis-Dreyfus casting was perfect. And I'm really hoping someone on the internet takes Sam's training montage and puts it to Eye of the Tiger.
Yes.
It'd be cool, the training montage. That's important to note. He is not super powered, yet he has to work his butt off. And he's an older guy, too. Let's face it, as we get older, we start slowing down. So the effort that he has to put in, it's like Tom Brady, right? When he was younger in his career, for those that watch the NFL, he was able to do things without too much work. He is now in his 40s, just won a Super Bowl, but he did so by putting in hours and hours of work. He's got a nutritionist, a trainer. He's following a specific regimen in order to do that. Sam is at that point in his life, and he's learning new things and doing some phenomenal things, like doing some parkour, for the lack of a better term, as he's throwing the shield around, that sort of thing, which is all great. Love to see it on camera. But everybody else that's wielded the shield so far, and I will count Walker as part of that, has had super soldier serum in them. You had Steve Rogers, you have Bucky, you have Walker now. Sam is going to be the first one that doesn't. So this is going to be interesting.
Which is also kind of, again, good sci-fi looks at reality from a slightly different angle. Again, it's more than a bit metaphorical. All of the guys who have held that shield so far that we know of are white. He has to work twice as hard to get to that point. There's that whole saying, it's like you work twice as hard to get half as much. And I think it's kind of a brilliant choice by the writer director to kind of show that symbolically. He's somebody who does not have these advantages that the other people had. So yeah, he just has to do it his own way, first of all. And yeah, I really can't wait to see. I want to see him with the shield. I want to see him in the new uniform. I'm so excited.
Next week, we're going to do just that. We're going to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Season 1, Episode 6, the finale episode of the series, definitely this season, possibly the series. And it's not titled yet. We'll find out what the title is as we go along during the week. And that is it for this week for our discussion on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But we have news and feedback to get to, and news we'll get to right now.
We have casting information on Spider-Man No Way Home.
We've talked about this a little bit. It was rumored then, but Alfred Molina has confirmed that he's going to be Doc Ock in No Way Home. I linked an article from Vanity.com. When he asked John Watts, the director of No Way Home, how the movie would bring Doc Ock back, since, as he pointed out, I died, Molina said the director told him, in this universe, no one really dies. And Alfred Molina talks about how, he's like, I'm 20 years older. I have 2 double chins and, I can't move like I used to. And Watts told him, because the movie will pick up from that moment in the river. He's like, no, we'll digitally de-age you. It's fine. And he also mentioned, in regards to being 20 years older, we talked about how, you get older, things start kind of falling apart. He's like, oh my God, the stunt work. Oh, wait, the tentacles did all my stunt work. I just kind of went ugh, and then the tentacles were added in post. So I thought that was a pretty funny interview.
Cool. Marvel has big plans for that Falcon and Winter Soldier cameo.
Yeah, so as we have discussed, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was in this episode as Val. Apparently in 2019. Okay, Veep ended. Veep, I mentioned earlier, it was a show on HBO where she's the vice president, briefly the president, back to vice president. It's a whole thing. It's really, really funny. And in regards to, I think it was the final season, they were like, oh, we should you should play a villain or something, like a super villain. And she said, swinging around on wires and kicking people in the face, shooting fire out of whatever you shoot fire out of. I would dig that. And again, the article mentions that a lot of people have been suspecting that this is indicating that they are slowly rolling out the Thunderbolts. And I I agree. I think that's where we're headed.
And as far as stunt work, let's just remember those shoes weren't made for walking.
And we have Brie Larson teaching Tessa Thompson to play Fortnite.
Okay. I watched this the other day. It was really, really cute. Brie Larson I say this year, it was 2020, I think, started up a YouTube channel and she just posts like random stuff on there. And this past week, she has about a 10-minute video. It's her, Captain Marvel, Tessa Thompson, Valkyrie. And Brie is the one who's actually playing. And Tessa's like, okay, we're going to go here. Let's try this. And Brie's walking her through it, kind of trying to get her to play with her. And it's really funny. It's really cute. They decide that their two goals are number 1, tame a wolf, and number 2, win. And they managed to do both. It's really cute.
Brie also had a video about her back to training because, of course, filming for her next movie is coming up. So she is back training for her next movie. So if you like Brie Larson, subscribe to her YouTube channel. There's all sorts of interesting things that she does in that. And that's it for the news for this week. We have some feedback.
We have an email from 084.
So it's pretty short. I'll read the whole thing. Greetings. I heard you guys trying to wrap your head around when the 6 years ago intro to episode 4 took place and thought I would try to help. We're established to be 6 months after Endgame, which was 5 years after Infinity War. So the scene with Bucky and Io, along with the Black Panther post-credit with Bucky and Shuri, both take place 6 months before Infinity War. Since Infinity War and Civil War were confirmed in dialogue to be 2 years apart, that means it took a year and a half for Bucky to be deprogrammed. Loving the show so far. Hope you all are doing well. Until next time, 084.
It was still a very impactful scene, as well as when Bucky showed up at the Sokovian Memorial. That was also a very impactful scene. I know the whole Zemo thing was going on, but we need to remember what happened in Sokovia as well as the entire world. Is there going to be some sort of blip memorial, you think?
I mean, we have memorials for all sorts of stuff, so it wouldn't surprise me. We have a Rocky statue, so.
And there was in the first episode when Sam is donating the shield, there's this whole like story about like what happened, and there's a list of names of like either the missing or the returned or something like that, because there were names going on and on. So I think over time there's going to be some sort of memorial. Wait to see.
Oh, that reminds me. Like way back like 20, 30 minutes ago when we were talking about Walker building the shield. In the comics, John Walker built his own version of the Cap shield, but inscribed it with the names of all the people that he lost in Vietnam, because that, originally John Walker was a Vietnam vet. Here we have the Medal of Honor, I think, fulfilling the same purpose. Okay, anyway.
Well, with the newer space probes, their first ones had a record of a golden record, like the Voyager probes and the Pioneer probes of humanity and a lot of the names that went with the development of the probe and that sort of thing. And lately they've been transitioning to like a microchip with everybody's name on there that wants to be a part of it. Basically, just you had to sign a form or online, apply for a form online, and then your name would go with the latest probes. So I think you could get all of the names or something like that electronically on something, but it just wouldn't mean the same as actually displaying them somewhere, in my opinion. Anyway, I want to thank 084 very much for the email. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the well wishes with the podcast. We hope you're enjoying it, and we're hoping everybody is enjoying it, actually. And with that, Michelle, what are we going to do now?
We're going to do some S.H.I.E.L.D. training on our way out.
I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. I want to specifically thank those that are watching our stream live. We really appreciate that. And we are looking forward to the next episode.
Thank you again to everybody who gets a hold of us on Twitter, whether it's during the live tweets on Saturday mornings or just, in general throughout the week. We really love hearing from you. We really love knowing that you're thinking of us. I know it always puts a smile on my face, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for listening or watching. Thank you for the email. And of course, come to the Discord where we have very interesting conversations. In the spoiler channel, everyone has been very respectful by putting their thoughts immediately in the spoiler channel and not ruining it for anyone else.
And I just am looking forward to the week and Friday night. Until next time, I'm producer of the show, SP.
I'm Agent Lauren.
And I'm Agent Michelle.
See everybody next time. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to gonnageek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended.
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2021.